promoting dialogue.
It's May Day in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Major political parties in Guinea boycott meetings to draft a new constitution.
Because of this, the NAD wrote a letter to the president of the CNT to point out all these violations and make sure that this document can be corrected.
American Kaila Aviation threatens to seize Senegal's aircraft. Climate change actors in Nigeria express concern over growing threats of solid waste and their potential dangers to environment.
We speakers exist as unsung heroes, but the truth is that they ensure protection of our environment.
And authority in Mali lifts the suspension of subsidies to Catholic schools for 2024-2025 school year. These stories and more coming up. Please stay with us.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. This edition begins in Guinea, where the meeting between political actors and the transitional parliament regarding the draft of the new constitution has concluded. However, the meeting was boycotted by major political coalitions such as ANAD, led by Selu Dalin Jallo, and RPG Council, led by Alpha Conde. In an address to the president of the National Transition Council, they demanded the inclusion of articles from the transitional charter that prohibit junta members from contesting in upcoming elections. Here is Cheno Alpha Ibrahim Mbadi's report, voiced in our studios by Abdullahi Hassan.
Over 2 days, around 100 representatives from political parties and advisors from the National Transition Council gathered in the city of Kindia, located 113 kilometers from Conakry, the capital, to discuss the new provisions of the draft constitution. Several points of contention were raised by the participants, concerns they wish to see addressed in the final document. Oye Bevegui, Secretary General of the PDG RDA party, commented on the matter.
There is a primary question that struck the conscience of the people: the ban on the candidacy of the institutions that are included in the chart, speaking of the CNRD, the government and the CND. And at this level, the debate was very juicy. Some people stayed on their promises. The other thing that is more important, and the question that remains for those who could not be responded: what is the body that will be in charge of organizing in the elections?
This meeting in Kindia was boycotted by key opposition figures. Edward Zotomwa, vice president of the ANAD coalition, explained the reasons for their absence.
Because of this, the NAD wrote a letter to the president of the CNT to point out all these violations and make sure that this document can be corrected.
For his part, Dansa Kuruma, president of the National Transition Council, acknowledged the opposition's concerns and urged them to engage in dialogue with transitional authorities.
Our unity does not exist, especially in a democracy. But let's make sure that everyone is given the opportunity to express their wishes.
Other social and professional actors also provided their opinions on the draft constitution. The document will return to the National Transition Council (CNT) for review before being officially submitted to the President of the Transition, General Mamadi Doumbouya.
That was Teno Alpha Ibrahim Mbadi's report, voiced in our studios by Abdullahi Hassan. The authorities in Mali have temporarily lifted the suspension of subsidies to Catholic schools for the 2024-2025 school year. This decision was announced following a crucial meeting chaired by Prime Minister Dr. Shogel Kokala Maigai on Wednesday in Bamako. The meeting, attended by key ministers and representatives of the Catholic Church, focused on the postponement of the suspension of state subsidies to Catholic schools. This move underscores the transitional government's commitment to addressing the needs of the Malian people, as emphasized by the Prime Minister Maiga, while highlighting the importance of balancing the interests of the majority to ensure progress. The extension aims to provide Catholic schools representatives with the opportunity to raise awareness among the Episcopal Conference, teachers, students, and parents about the current situation in the country. The Prime Minister called for close collaborations with relevant ministers to resolve outstanding issues definitely. Here in Senegal, the American Kailai Aviation is threatening to seize Air Senegal aircraft. This follows a legal proceeding filed by the American leasing company, which is claiming nearly $10 million from the national airline. A U.S. court has also issued an order grounding for aircraft leased to the Senegalese company. The ruling coincides with a decreeing mission that Air Senegal is currently carrying out in Miami. Details with Oge Oberika.
According to media sources, the American company is requesting a large sum from Air Senegal to resolve a dispute regarding aircraft leasing. The U.S. justice system has granted Khalil Aviation the authority to ground up to 4 aircraft, including 2 A319s and 2 A321s, out of the 8 currently operated by Air Senegal. This discussion could potentially reduce the Senegalese airlines fleet to 4 aircraft. In response to this situation, Air Senegal officials have reportedly traveled to the United States to negotiate with the American company. Air Senegal has also paid $700,000 as a gesture of good faith, although Khalil Aviation remains unmoved and continues to pressurize Air Senegal. It is important to note that Air Senegal is facing various other financial difficulties, including payment delays with BP France, insurer Euler Hermes of the German Group Alliance, the Export Credit Agency UK Export Finance, and other creditors.
Oge Oberika fight that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's take you to Cote d'Ivoire as the Vice President of COGEP, Bli Jocelyn, representing Shab Blegudate's party, expressed the party's view on Laurent Gbagbo's call for an opposition rally during the press conference. COGEP stated that it will announce its position on this call at a later date, but reaffirmed its commitment to the platform initiated by Simon Gbagbo. Imo Edit brings us the details in this report filed by our Abidjan correspondent Albin Ade.
According to the party's vice president, the leadership of opposition political groups is already working to address major challenges for a more democratic, reconciled, stable, free and prosperous Côte d'Ivoire. There has been an increase in calls for gatherings from political organizations and civil society. Blair Jocelyn is the vice president of COGEP.
The COGEP wishes to inform national and international opinion, which are the stakeholders of the platform, and all the opposition political parties and civil society organizations that signed the declaration of August 9, 2024 at the PDCI headquarters at the call of Dr. Simone Ehivet Gbagbo.
Regarding former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo's call, COGEP mentioned that it will announce its position later.
COGEP received at its headquarters a delegation from the PPACI management led by Professor Sebastian Dana Jeje on Wednesday, August 14, to present Benoit's appeal and invite him to join it. At the end of this meeting, COGEP produced a press release announcing that it acknowledges this appeal and will follow up on it in due course.
Charles Blair Good's party also urged all Ivorian citizens to take the necessary steps to obtain the administrative documents to register massively on the electoral list.
That was WADR's Abidjan correspondent Abin Ade's report, voiced by Imo Edit. Still in Cote d'Ivoire, 2 separate road accidents occurred on Wednesday, resulting in significant material damage and multiple injuries. The first incident took place in Daloa, involving a public transport vehicle, where the driver lost control, causing the vehicle to veer off the road in the Bejala area. Firefighters reported 16 victims had died, involving 3 children aged 1 to 2 years, 7 women aged 19 to 70 years, and 6 men aged 18 to 45. The second incident occurred in the Bongwanan area where 2 motorcyclists collided. This incident resulted in 4 injuries involving a woman in her 40s and 3 young men aged 25 to 27. In Cote d'Ivoire, there are 21 deaths per 100,000 people. Road crashes are also the primary cause of the death among young people aged 5 to 29. According to the World Bank, the cost of road crashes represents 7.8% of Ivory Coast GDP. We head to Ghana, where the country's cocoa regulator, Ghanan Cocoa Board, has denied claims made by the minority in parliament that its decision to not borrow from the international market to purchase beans is because the international banks have rejected its requests for syndicated loans. The decision to source the funds locally is a departure from a 32-year practice. In May this year, it was reported that the cocoa regulator would borrow up to $1.5 billion by September to finance 2024-2025 cocoa purchases and compensate for low output. WADR's Accra correspondent Adede Titi has the details.
On Tuesday, Cocoa Board, through a press conference addressed by its CEO, Joseph Boahin Edu, announced that the cocoa regulator would not raise the annual syndicated loan to finance the purchase of cocoa beans for the 2024 crop season, which begins on September 1. Instead, the funds will be sourced locally. This decision marks a departure from the norm established since 1992.
32 years, we've learned our lessons, and we think that it's high time we weaned ourselves from the offshore international financial markets and then finance the crop.
Immediately, the minority responded, accusing Cocoa Board of avoiding foreign loans to hide its declining creditworthiness. Here is Deputy Ranking Member on the Agri Committee of Parliament, Dr. Seydou Gisau.
It's a dire situation. When you try to flip it over and tell us that it's a deliberate policy shift, when really it is a demonstration of your incapacity and therefore inability to be able to source financing, I think that's disingenuous, and Ghanaians shouldn't be taken for granted.
For economist Dr. Patrick Isuming, while acknowledging the declining creditworthiness, the latest decision by Cocoa Board should have been made a long time ago.
If you look at the trouble that we had last year getting the syndicated done, and then also the problem that the cocoa production itself has suffered, I think you could see that maybe Cocoa Board's hand has been somewhat forced. For me, that's not the point. Hard times should force you to make long-lasting reforms. And so, as far as I'm concerned, whether it's because they're struggling to raise the funds or whatever they got here, we are here. And I think that's the most important thing. There could be some challenges, but I think whatever support that can be provided to Cocoa Board to make this work, we should let it happen.
Responding directly to the minority, Cocoa Board dismissed the claims of declining creditworthiness as misleading, stating that the decision to reduce external borrowing is a strategic move to strengthen its finances. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
Still in Ghana, the executive director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, has asserted that the country's democracy is under threat if the concerns of the pending elections turning violent are not addressed. Dr. Akwete noted that the Ghana Armed Forces has on more than 2 occasions threatened that if elections in the country turn violent beyond the control of the Ghana Police Service, it would intervene. He explained that threats like these from the army should be taken seriously because they point to nothing but the end of civil rule and military takeover. The ADEC boss also stated that from media reportage and from real threats in the sub-region where some countries have drifted towards the military or the return of military governments, it is an indication that the threats in Ghana should not be taken lightly. Ghana has been a democracy since 1992, with the last coup in the country led by Field Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings taking place in 1979. As COP29 draws closer, climate activists in Nigeria are expressing concern over the growing threats of solid waste and their potential dangers to the ecosystem. At a stakeholders meeting in Abuja, government officials and international climate activists identified the role of waste pickers or scavengers as essential in the efforts towards sustainable solid waste management practices. From Abuja, Usma Omar provides further details.
From recent studies, about 2.0 billion tons of solid waste are generated annually, The impact of this on human health and environment is therefore becoming a worrisome challenge that demands urgent action. At this stakeholders meeting, therefore, climate actors from both local and international organizations are here bridging solutions. Stephen Agugwa is the coordinator of climate project at International Labour Organization, while Turanjibi Tiwani is the climate change manager at UNICEF. They both believe that waste pickers or scavengers must be recognized as integral to all efforts towards efficient waste management.
The ILO is joining force with the people that are working within the industry. That is the waste pickers, whom we know that have been marginalized.
Until and unless we know what kind of challenges they are facing, the kind of occupational health hazard they are facing, will not be able to address it.
On its part, the Nigerian government, through the Ministry of Environment, believes the development of a national digital repository of waste pickers or scavengers will enable profiling and better organization of their activities. Omotunde Adeola is the Director of Pollution Control and Environment Health at the Ministry of Environment.
Waste pickers exist as unsung heroes, but the truth is that they ensure protection of our environment.
The growing demand for recyclable materials continued to put pressure on the government and the public to recognize the overall economic importance of waste pickers or scavengers. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Major political parties in Guinea boycott meetings to draft a new constitution. American Kala Aviation threatens to seize Senegal's aircraft. Climate change actors in Nigeria express concern over growing threats of solid waste and their potential dangers to environments. And authority in Mali lifts the suspension of subsidies to Catholic schools for 2024-2025 school year. Still ahead, we have the guest interview and the sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thanks for being with us. As a reminder, we're streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. African states reported over 1,000 additional cases of Mpox outbreak last week, bringing a total to almost 19,000 across 12 countries since the start of 2024, according to the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC. The World Health Organization last week declared Mpox a global public health emergency for the second time in 2 years due to a new variant spreading in Africa. Amid the unfoldings, Professor Oyewale Tomori, a Nigerian virologist, is proposing essential measures aimed at addressing the Mpox outbreak in the sub-region and the African continent at large.
It started with DR Congo. They had cases. Nobody is looking at our border. That people move from one place to the other. Everybody kept quiet until then it spread to the next neighbor, Rwanda. Then it went to Burundi. Burundi went to Uganda. And now South Africa reported. Kenya is reporting. So this is the problem. The risk factors are neglect. When you neglect something, information and right kind of information to people and guidance and education, what to do if you have this one. It's not just sitting down in the headquarters and giving out releases. People must be on the field. We need field workers. The eradication of polio in many of the African regions was based on the field workers who were there on the field vaccinating and looking at cases and all that, not the people who were writing policies in the headquarters. We need to put more effort on our own people at the center where the diseases are occurring. Equip them. How much are we asking for? A telephone with SIM card to somebody in the village who can get access to this thing, to call the next headquarters. How much is that compared to the billions that we spend to fly a sample from Dakar to another country?
Professor Oyewale Tomori is a Nigerian virologist. Away from West Africa in the Central African Republic, local and municipal elections initially scheduled for next October have been postponed to a new date. The government announced the information on Thursday, August 22. According to the government, citizens will now be able to elect their representatives at the local and municipal levels on April 6, 2025. Away from Central Africa, the Sierra Leonean Correctional Service is seeking financial support to expand its agricultural initiatives with access to over 5,000 acres of land. The SLCS plans to launch large-scale mechanized farming to reduce inmate food costs and potentially generate revenue. Details with H.A. Atisu.
This initiative was highlighted by Susan Coker, Director of Support Services, during the presentation of their 2025 budget on August 19, 2024. Currently, the SLCS spends a significant portion of its budget on inmate welfare, with 80% dedicated to feeding inmates. By investing in agriculture, they aim to cut these costs and ensure a steady supply of nutritious food. The SLCS has submitted a project proposal for funding to the Ministry of Agriculture and West African Women in Agriculture. They believe that with adequate support, they can significantly contribute to food production and reduce government spending on inmates' diets. However, challenges remain. Overcrowding and inadequate healthcare are pressing issues within the correctional facilities. The SLCS is also focusing on skills training for young inmates and addressing the unique challenges faced by women through the establishment of a gender directorate. As the CLCS embarks on these reforms, comprehensive support and humane treatment are essential to ensure successful rehabilitation and reintegration of inmates into society.
H.A. Atisu fight that report.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
The guest segment this afternoon focuses on the monkeypox outbreak spreading through the African continent. African states reported over 1,000 additional cases of mpox outbreak last week, bringing the total to almost 19,000 across 12 countries since the start of 2024, according to the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC. Amid these unfoldings, Professor Oyewale Tomori, a Nigerian virologist, is proposing essential measures aimed at addressing the mpox outbreak in the sub-region and the African continent at large.
The most important thing at that level is detecting of cases. You cannot sit down in Dakar and detect a case in the village 200 miles away from you. It has to be the man, the head of the person in that village you will detect. Equipping with the various communication system, that's not a problem now. To get to the next higher level that can do something about that. That level should also be equipped to do what it can do, and then the next higher level. So we grade down this surveillance thing. I don't expect a PCR lab in my village, but I expect the ability of the man who is in that village to be able to take the right sample and bring it and ship it and transport it to the next level. We can do the laboratory diagnosis. Those are the things we need to be talking about.
Okay.
Not asking for high-polluting laboratories in a Dakar when you can't even get samples from the village where the case is occurring. These are issues we need to begin to address.
What roles the African Center for Disease Control you think needs to play when it comes to helping African countries with having good isolation center, improve surveillance, and improve communication system and laboratory systems that will be able to detect and trace these cases?
We know what to do. It's just that we're not ready to do it. I raised a question. I said, DR Congo has had Ebola like about 15 episodes. Monkeypox has been in Africa since 1970s. Are you saying we don't know how to do surveillance? We know. It's just that we will not put the money, the right amount of money, to enable those people who know to do what they should do. It's like you say you have a carpenter, and then you don't give him materials to work with. What kind of carpenter is that? You can't build anything. So the money that our leaders are wasting on all those things, put it back into the equipment that we require to I use the word, create an enabling environment for your talented people to function. Those are the things we need to do. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. There's something new in epidemiology on cases of, we've been reporting cases of monkeypox for the last 1970s. So there's nothing new in it. Because we've neglected to do what we're doing, that's where we are.
African countries have begun registering cases of mpox. What do you think are the risk factors if early warning signs are not being addressed by respective countries with the help of the African CDC?
First of all, let me say, any disease anywhere in the world that is neglected will spread everywhere. And that's what is happening to us. It started with DR Congo. They had cases. Nobody is looking at our border, that people move from one place to the other. Everybody kept quiet until then it spread to the next neighbor, Rwanda. Then went to Burundi. Burundi went to Uganda. And now South Africa reported. Kenya is reporting. So this is the problem. The risk factors are neglect. The minute you neglect something, information and right information to people and guidance and education, what to do if you have this one. It's not just sitting down in the headquarters and giving out releases. People must be on the field. We need field workers. The eradication of polio in many of the African regions was based on the field workers who were there on the field vaccinating and looking at cases and all that, not the people who were writing policies in the headquarters. We need to put more effort on our own people at the center where the diseases are occurring. Equip them. How much are we asking for? The telephone with SIM card to somebody in the village who can get access to this thing, to call the next headquarters. How much is that compared to the billions that we spend to fly a sample from Dakar to another country? So a little bit of money put into that person, making that person, enabling the person at the community level to be effective is much more cost effective than having 1 million to fly a sample to US to go and test. We're all working together to see Africa improve, and you are doing a great job by getting this kind of information out to the right people.
Professor Oyewale Tomori is a Nigerian virologist. And here is Sankule Janko with sports.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Confirmation to the second round of the preliminary stages of both CAF Champions League and CAF Confederation Cup will be decided this weekend as the return legs of both competitions get underway. The 2024-25 season of two of Africa's most sought-after club competitions kicked off to an exciting start last week, with clubs across the continent kicking off their continental ambitions. CAF Champions League action on Friday afternoon sees Nigeria's Enugu Rangers FC welcoming US Zilmanju of Comoros following last weekend's 1-0 win for the Nigerians. Somalia's Dakar face Djibouti's Ata Sola 7 with a comfortable 2-0 first leg win and go into the home leg with a decent advantage that could see them through. Friday's marquee tie sees former champions Orlando Pirates looking to redeem a disappointing performance that saw them draw 0-0 away to Madagascar's Disciples FC. They welcome their visitors to the Orlando Stadium where they will be looking at securing a victory. Other exciting classes to look out for over the weekend include two ties in Morocco. AS FAR take on Remo Stars of Nigeria, while Raja Casablanca welcome Niger's AS Jean FC. Last weekend, 4-goal thriller between Togo's AS CK and AS Fan of Niger concluded with an evenly balanced 2-2 draw, setting up another mouth-watering return leg for this weekend. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Mawudo Juf for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you.